Okay, here we go again. This is the Midnight Skeptic, and as you can see, I'm wearing my official Midnight Skeptic shirt as a special treat for all my thousands and thousands of listeners out there. Okay, let's get going, and here's my in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic Show number 55, and it'll be broadcast on this coming Sunday, the 13th, Super Bowl Sunday, but at 9 o'clock at night. I wouldn't want to have them broadcast this during the afternoon because you'd have to make a choice. Watch the Super Bowl or watch the Midnight Skeptic. And I know that most of you would watch the Midnight Skeptic. Okay, or listen to the Midnight Skeptic. It'll be on the radio, KPCA-LP 103.3 FM here in Petaluma. But worldwide, www.kpca.fm. Okay, and it's going to be up on YouTube, hopefully tonight if it gets downloaded and everything goes well. Okay, I'm going to be thinking or rethinking my thoughts about Joe Rogan later on in the show. And as I said as I downloaded onto my Facebook page, that it was going to be a rethinking of the Joe Rogan, plus some other issues. Okay, the views of the Midnight Skeptic will make you uncomfortable, especially if you're a snowflake Republican, and especially if you are a member of the cult, and I repeat that, cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. The views of the Midnight Skeptic should be everybody's views, but they are not necessarily the views, as said before, of Petaluma Community Access or of KPCA-LP 103.3 FM and its other affiliated TV outlets that Petaluma Community Access has for recording city council meetings and planning commission meetings and all of that kind of stuff that by law we are supposed to do. Okay. If you are made to feel uncomfortable by what I say, let me know, really, seriously. Send all correspondences, hate mail, death threats, and especially compliments, and I know you have a lot of them, and fan mail to themidnightskeptic at gmail.com. Okay, shout-outs. I'm going to try to get through this really quickly because I got a lot of other stuff to get to. Okay, all of my international and Spotify fans out there in the UK and Ireland, Germany, the Czech Republic, Australia, New Zealand. There's a total of, I don't know, maybe 10 that listens to me over there. Okay, East Coast, Geraldine Goldfinger on Long Island, Herr Doctor, Raleigh, North Carolina, Amelia Beamer in Edgewater, Florida, Nelson and Alice Lydell, Florida as well. Shannon Reed, Arkansas, listens to me periodically. Arizona, my brother Brandon and Mina, and my niece, his daughter, Andrea, and her husband Tim, ex-Marine, booyah. And their three little terrorists, as they call them, have called them. And down in the southern part of Arizona, in Patagonia, Karina Hilliard, Okay, over to L.A., Jackie and Wayne Kolar. Up the coast to Pacifica, Stan and Kathy Gustafson. And up to Sebastopol, Rich and Kathy Berger. And then the Sonora crowd. And I've been forgetting to mention Kathy Wiley Francis, who listens every now and then up in Sonora. But so I'm mentioning her now. Okay, Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha Fisher. And Martha, you're a nurse. Take care of yourself. Don't catch COVID. Wear your PPE. Doral Larson, Judy May, and Leonidas Maciel. And then all the way down in Mexico City, ex-Sonoraite, Rosie Lopez Negrete. And locally, Yvonne in San Francisco, Kevin and Lori in Katati. And over to Sacramento, Dave and Rosie Takach. And Mickey Huff, godfather of the Project Censored, who has his show on KPCALP 103.3. His show is just getting over. It goes from 1 to 2. Right now, it's about 10 minutes after 4 here in Petaluma. And but his show's repeated on 94.1 KPFA over in Berkeley on Fridays, 1 to 2. So check him out. Good shows. And then very locally, Nariman. And he and I used to play basketball, I don't know, 25 years ago or so. And Tim Conrad, ex-Sonoraite, heck of a good photographer. Whew. Okay, let's go. Rethinking Joe Rogan. Okay. Last show, I talked a little bit about Joe Rogan, and I told you that I'd never really listened to his podcast. I listened to excerpts from some of his podcasts, and he claims that he is an interviewer, not a opinion spewer like, well, I'm not going to mention the other ones. But he, in listening to a few of his extended excerpts from his podcasts, he does manage to spew out his opinions in between his asking questions of his interviewee subjects. And so although I have to agree that he's not a hardcore right-winger or Trumper. I think he did vote for Trump, he admitted, in the 2020 election. But anyway, Spotify, the outfit that carries his podcasts, and Spotify originally started out, and it's a Swedish company, and they accumulated music and paid for the rights to play music or have people listen to the music. And the reason I get Spotify is on my Google Assistant. And, when I get up in the morning and then jump in the shower and get out, I ask my Google Assistant to, okay, Google, play blah, 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 blah. And then they will, and it's always via...
Playing the album Blah, Blah, Blah on Spotify.
Okay, Google, turn off the music. Honestly, I didn't even know that Blah, Blah, Blah was the name of a song. Spotify started playing it up there, and it overheard me. Okay. Funny. Okay. Anyway, where was I? Okay, Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan Experience is what he calls his show, and it's... if not the most popular, one of the most popular podcasts carried on Spotify. But a number of artists, Neil Young for one, and Joni Mitchell for another, have removed their songs from Spotify in protest of them carrying Joe Rogan. I don't think Joe Rogan should be shut down or kicked off of Spotify, and he has apologized for, oh, well, first of all, being very opinionated about things on the right side of the political spectrum, and then more lately, Spotify has quietly removed around 70 episodes of his show for him using the N word. I'll spell it out in case you don't know what that is, the Nigger word. And he regrets having used those words, except that he assumed it was a word that blacks use among themselves, and so he felt like, well, he could use it as well. Well, Joe Rogan is one of the more dim bulbs in the world of podcasts, so he should have been able to figure this out, and I don't think he will use the N-word again. And like I say, I'm enough of a freedom of speech guy that I don't think he should be kicked off Spotify, but he should rethink a lot of his opinions. And I should never rethink my own opinions, of course. It goes without saying. Okay. Speaking of uncomfortable issues, and in Republican states where there's a big controversy over CRT, and I've talked about CRT on previous shows, and Republicans are just snowflakes in that they're afraid of learning the truth about our history in this country. And I consider myself a patriot, and that doesn't mean that I'm one of those guys who has an American flag that they're waving around, and I go to protests and heaven forfend, see a lot of Confederate stars and bars flags, or the coiled snake, don't tread on me. Unfortunately, right-wingers, the members of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, and militia types, and all those sickening people, MAGA heads, have appropriated the word patriot to the point where now, when I hear somebody referring to themselves as a patriot, okay, well, I got more red flags raised in my mind than you'd see at a Chinese military parade. They're not patriots. The people that attempted to overturn the election and by invading our capital on the 6th of January of last year, they're not patriots. They're not engaging in, how did the Republican National Committee put it? Political conversations. I forget the exact wording. It's on, my lefty propaganda stations, MSNBC. But anyway, they're not patriots. And if Republicans feel uncomfortable, they're projecting their discomfort onto their own kids who are of school age, and they're assuming that if a school kid learns his history about slavery in this country, how we massacred the Native Americans, how we excluded the Chinese, and that's here in California. Well, it's a nationwide bill, but specifically it was applied here in California after, of course, they got through helping to build our railroads. And our xenophobia continues on today in the name of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag who are uncomfortable with immigrants coming up from down south. You know, they speak Spanish and they have darker skins generally. And boy, if that doesn't make Republicans uncomfortable, somebody with a bit darker skin. Okay. There's a, well, it's not controversial, or it shouldn't be controversial, about the reason that we had the Civil War. Why did the Confederate States band together and rebel against the United States of America? Well, here's a Confederate States vice president. Let's see, the president was, brain freeze, Jefferson Davis. Okay, this guy was Jefferson Davis's vice president, and he gave a cornerstone speech about the wishes of this new nation, meaning the Confederate States of America. They wished themselves to be a new nation. Well, here's the cornerstone speech. Quote, "Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea." And what he's referring to is of all men are created equal. Okay. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. Okay, if that doesn't make you want to throw up, I don't know what will. I hope you all are a bit uncomfortable at having hear me read this quote from Alexander Stephens is his name. He was the vice president to Jefferson Davis of the Confederate States of America. Okay. Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton, if you happen to be listening, and I know you're not, so I'm safe in saying this. I think you're a jerk. You're a racist jerk. You're a stupid racist jerk. So, you know where to come after me if you disagree with all of that. Okay, he's a Republican. Of course he is. From Arkansas. He's a senator. He favors a law banning any teaching related to the 1619 Project. Quote, as the Founding Fathers said, it was the necessary evil upon which the Union was built. Okay, well, our Founding Fathers did in fact say that. A lot of them called it the necessary evil. Excuse me, I got to take a quick sip of, this is grape juice, by the way. It's not wine. I don't drink very much anymore. I'm not against drinking. It's just that I get awfully tired and can't concentrate on watching my Golden State Warriors kick their latest asses of their opponents. Anyway, I got to sip this. Okay, if you weren't sickened enough by what Tom Cotton wants or what Alexander Stephens said, well, let me lay another one on you. And I kind of hate to do this because I haven't been able for this show to really find any good news to incorporate in this, and I've had a few missives sent my way about I should incorporate more good news, and I agree. I'm not an angry person by nature. I really am not. You probably can't tell that from the rantings and ravings of the Midnight Skeptic, but really, I like to laugh too much. I like to make jokes, and I wish I had more jokes to say on this show, and good news, good environmental news, or good civil rights news. I wish I, had time to search more magazines and newspapers and books that I read. I do read a lot. And anyway, I'm just getting off topic here. All right, so what did I say here? If you're not disturbed and made uncomfortable enough by what Alexander Stevens and Tom Cotton, two out-and-out racists, say, here's another one for you. In 1964, in the United States Federal District Court in Virginia, Judge Leon Bazile, I think that's how you pronounce it. His last name is spelled capital B A Z I L E. He was considering a challenge to a Virginia anti-miscegenation law. Okay, and what's miscegenation? That is two people of different races marrying each other. Okay. And it was challenged in 1964 by Richard and Mildred Loving, capital Loving. Most of my listeners probably have heard of this or are familiar with it, but those of you who are not, it was Loving versus Virginia. Well, this was the first time that they challenged the law because they were arrested when they got married in Maryland and then moved back to Virginia. And I don't know whether it was his home state or her home state, but they were arrested for being married. Okay. And this is what a federal judge, Leon Bazile, said, quote, Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. And, but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriages. The fact that he separated the races show that he did not intend for the races to mix. And I don't know how he talked, but the influence of the Southern Baptist Church is even today quite heavy down in those areas. Not quite so much in Virginia anymore, but when you get down to Mississippi and Alabama, and then the worst of the worst is Tennessee. Once you get down there, then you turn your radio dial in your car almost anywhere, and you'll hear these, Southern Baptist pastors ranting and raving about right-wing politics and things that they have no business talking about. Anyway, okay, so Republicans in Republican-controlled states would whitewash these words out of our history, all in the name of not making whites uncomfortable. And believe me, it's not the kids who would be uncomfortable. It's the parents. It's the members of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, the MAGA heads, the stupid-ass conservatives that would be made uncomfortable. And then they project that discomfort onto their school-aged kids. Well, the kids can handle this. It's Republicans that can't handle this. Okay, the truth is we should be uncomfortable with aspects of our country's history. Those not discomforted by history are doomed to repeat it. Like, oh, God forbid, re-electing the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Boy, that's all we need in 2024. Okay. You cannot teach about an abomination in polite terms. Monstrous acts deprived of monstrous language will always fail to relay the depravity of these events. It has to be upsetting, has to be unsavory, has to be ghastly, or it's a lie. So if students in the South, meaning Republican-controlled states, are going to appreciate the ghastliness or unsavoriness of certain aspects of our history, then they have to be told the truth. And they'll get over it. They'll hopefully figure out ways to make our country a better country. These stupid MAGA hats make America great again. How the cult people who wear these stupid hats think that America was great, I would imagine, and I've never interviewed one of them, and I don't particularly want to, they sort of believe in the America circa 1950 to 1960, in that era. We just came off a big victory in World War II. The suburbs of America were growing to afford our returning servicemen a chance to own a house. Women knew their place. They were to stay home with little pearl necklaces on and a dress that went down to mid-calf, and greeted their husbands when he came home from work in his suit and tie and his hat. And she would have a nice dinner cooked for him, with the help of Betty Crocker. That was America at its greatest, according to these MAGA heads, conservative Republicans. Well, things change, and I don't even think that was America at its greatest back in 1950 to 1960. There were still lynchings going on down south. Blacks knew their place, according to the MAGA heads. We didn't have to worry about Chinese immigrants or Asians or any of those exotic people coming over here, except when you wanted to go have an exotic dinner at a Chinese restaurant and eat chop suey, or really exotic, going to a Mexican restaurant and eating burritos and tacos. Well, okay, that's the America that conservative MAGA heads want us to go back to. Okay. This is tough on my throat, so I got to keep sipping this grape juice to keep my throat lubricated. It's for the benefit of all my thousands and thousands of listeners out there. You're welcome. Okay, so where was I? Texas. All right. Granbury Independent School District, and this is right outside of Fort Worth. They are pulling books off shelves, and this article that I got this from was January 27th, about 2 weeks ago. today in Granbury ISD, Independent School District. At the high school library, they came with a hand cart and carried away multiple boxes of books tagged with Krause's List. And I talked about him, I think, on 2 shows ago. He's a Texas, I think he's a senator, Krause. He made up this stupid list of 850 books that he thought kids in Texas in general shouldn't read. So he made copies of this list of 850 books, distributed it to all the school districts in Texas. In Granbury, they're kneeling down in obeisance to this Krause guy, and they're pulling off the books. Okay, and on YouTube and TikTok, I saw some of the students, high school students, that were just fed up with this. And they protested, making very well thought out, well researched speeches. And, I don't think it did any good. They were going up to a spineless school district, what do they call them? School district representatives or whatever. Anyway, fed up students in Cranberry ISD voiced their anger at school officials looking to ban books on social inequality from the libraries. Not just social inequality, but CRT as it is defined by Republicans, and sexuality, books that have positive images of anybody in the LGBTQ community. I'll tell you, in the midterm elections coming up in 2022, in November of this year, and on 2024, if Republicans win control of this country, we are going to see a Republican dystopia like your worst nightmares would have been like. Okay. Here's another example of this. Iowa Republicans on January 11th this year introduced a bill in the Iowa House of Representatives to have cameras in every classroom for parental monitoring of classroom activities via a live feed. The cameras shall be connected to the internet, the bill says. The bill provides for penalties for non-compliance. And teachers would be required to wear a little microphone on their outfits so parents could keep track of what's being taught in the classroom. And they're worried about a teacher drain in Iowa. My God. A similar bill, Ron DeSantis, a similar bill in Florida was introduced on December the 28th. It's House Bill 1055. You can Google this. I encourage my listeners out there to do this. If passed, the effective date would be July 1st of 2022. That's 4 months from now. Cameras in classrooms bill. They even call it this. Teachers would have to wear microphones. Republican State Senator Mike Beltran of Tampa is the bill's co-sponsor, and of course he's a Republican. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So the Republican dystopia is on its way if if you progressive, liberal, democratic voters don't get out there and do something about this, it's going to be worse than 1984. The book, I mean. Okay. It's no coincidence that historically black colleges and universities have received a couple of dozen different bomb threats at the first of this month. This month is Black History Month, by the way, and the FBI is now investigating them. But I've heard comments to the effect that when I've said that it's Republicans that do these bomb threats, they say to me, well, how do you know? It could have been Democrats. BS. And can you imagine a progressive liberal Democrat phoning a death threat to, I don't know, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York? You're not doing enough to make this a liberal state. Can you imagine that? It's Republicans, and specifically the members of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. And almost all Republicans nowadays, and I'm talking about the politicians, are members of this cult. One of the things a Republican politician has to accede to is the thought that the election was stolen. The orange sociopathic bloat bag has the cult members under his thumb, and they all have to agree that, yeah, we have to investigate all these instances of election fraud. The public has to have their fears of fraudulent voting allayed. Well, it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater and then saying that, look at all these people running. They're afraid of fire in the theater. Well, it's you that yelled fire. Okay, I'm talking about Republicans, of course. Okay, another issue that's come up recently. Should convicted criminals be banned from voting for life? The only reason, well, the main reason that Republicans would be in favor of banning them from life is that there's such a discrepancy in this country of incarceration rates between whites and people of color. That is one way that Republican politicians can tamp down the people of color's voting, who in their minds they tend to vote heavily Democratic. Well, that's true. So that's one of the ways. Okay, specifically, Tennessee is the worst of the worst states in this regard. Felons are banned for life from voting. Okay, now here's an example. Pamela Moses of Memphis, Tennessee, was sentenced to, are you ready for this? 6 years in prison for trying to register to vote. She's black, of course. She was convicted of a felony in 2015. And I'm not sure of the exact crime. It wasn't murder or anything like that. It was a property crime. And she was released on probation in 2018. She filed an official, certificate of restoration of voting rights signed by an officer of the Shelby County Election Commission. in error. I mean, he didn't follow correct procedures or something. Anyway, she got this certificate, and then she took it with her registration form for voting down to the election office, and they approved it. It was signed by an officer of the Shelby County Election Commission in error. Things got very murky then. Through bureaucratic errors, she was charged with voter fraud. The handful of Republican voters in Republican-controlled states who attempted to cast another vote for the orange sociopathic bloat bag on behalf of their deceased wives or their non-voting sons, as in this happened in Pennsylvania, were all given a few days in lockup or put on probation. I talked about this thing in Texas, I don't know, about 6-7 shows ago. The Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, put up $1 million for evidence of voter fraud. He's being a wise ass. And then John Fetterman, the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, caught this guy, or it wasn't him, it was an election official that caught this one guy whose son, for whatever reason, didn't vote. And so the father, I guess he was maybe in his 60s or so, came into the voting precinct another time, a second time, with a hat and dark glasses. Well, the precinct worker recognized him and turned him in. And so John Fetterman wrote a letter or an email or something to Dan Patrick of Texas wanting to claim his money. Well, the upshot of it was Dan Patrick had to cut him a check for $25,000 as part of his reward money for catching him. And the guy was a Republican. He was casting his vote and his son's vote for the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay? So the only evidence of voter fraud were a handful of Republicans, stupid MAGA heads, that tried to vote a second time or a third time. The accusations of voter fraud in the state of Nevada were totally bogus. And one of the guys who, quote unquote, turned in a fraudulent voter was himself voting fraudulently. Anyway, the 2020 election was, and I'm going to try to quote a security expert that either worked for Dan Patrick or worked for the Texas Board of Elections or something. He said it was the most honest, upright, fraudulent-free election in United States history because there was so much checking on this. And but anyway, here we are. The orange bloat bag is still on his high horse about the election was stolen, and he's going on his series of rallies so he can look out at his audience in all their MAGA hats and assure himself that he is loved by his base. Okay, another topic. Starbucks in Memphis, Tennessee, fires workers who were involved in union organizing. Okay, and this happened yesterday. uh, February 8th, which is Tuesday. It's yesterday. This is Wednesday. Okay, Starbucks fired 7 employees who were seeking to unionize their store. An executive of Starbucks claimed that the 7 of them violated safety and security policies. Boy, do I smell a trumped up charge for firing these 7 people. The union, SWU, and that stands for Starbucks Workers United, they've already unionized 2 locations in Buffalo, New York, and good for them. And they're trying to unionize across the country. I'm all for that. A judge for the National Labor Relations Board said that Starbucks in 2019 and 2020 had fired 2 employees in Philadelphia who were involved in unionizing. Now, I am socialist that I am, all in favor of unions, and I'm collecting a pension, a small pension, from 2 of them. One, the Teamsters. When I was working in the beer and soft drink distribution industry, I wasn't a truck driver or anything. I was a salesman, but I was with the Teamsters Union long enough to, now collect a small pension. And the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW. When I went to work part-time for Safeway, this is down in San Francisco, they were unionized. That's fine. And so I joined. And then from then until I retired from Safeway in 2006, I was a member of the UFCW. Well, Safeway, in all their wisdom, decided to, in their efforts to ultimately save money, decided to buy out by early retirement a lot of their older workers, of which I guess they considered I was, because I'd been with them about 20 years by that point, including my part-time. So I accepted it, and so I'm now collecting a pension from the UFCW, and I've had nothing but good feelings and good times collecting my pensions, and now I'm on Social Security, and in between the pensions and the Social Security, I live comfortably, and I have tutoring students that I still help, which supplements the income a little bit. But I'm all in favor of unions. Now, there has been instances of corruption, and again, I'm thinking of the Teamsters way back in the 50s and 60s, the Jimmy Hoffa era. I would say that he made far more money being the president of the Teamsters Union than he deserved. But in general, I'm in favor of unions. So go for it. And I realize that union membership in general has declined in this country precipitously. But Democrats, generally speaking, are the party of the working person, the unionized person, and we as Democrats need to get back to that. And I would say that me being a Democratic socialist, Bernie Sanders type Democrat, we should get back to being the party of the working man. working person. I'm sorry. And the Republicans of late have feasted on white working persons' discontent about them not getting their fair share of these exploding profits of these mega corporations. And it shouldn't be that way. Somehow, Democrats have got to pay more attention to their messaging and try to convince more of, what I call still the stupid MAGA heads. Maybe I should cut down on calling them that because working people, are not stupid. Some of the people that worship the orange sociopathic bloat bag, in my opinion, are stupid and just don't realize that this grifter has taken advantage of them. I don't have enough notes to fill out the whole 58 minutes. Time check here. Okay, well, I don't have that far to go. I'm going to look back fondly at... last show I talked about the lawsuit by the Center for Inquiry, of which I'm a member. That's the parent company to the Skeptical Inquirer. When I started this show about 5 years ago or so, I called myself the Midnight Skeptic. Well, I'm still a member of the skeptical community, but I've kind of got tired of and ran out of ranting about people who believe in ghosts or homeopathy, or cryptids, Bigfoot and all that kind of nonsense. Show number 53. A Trump quote. Actually admitting that his followers should worm their way into political positions where they're able to conduct state elections and worse, count the votes. Okay. A couple of shows ago, show number 52. Here's... let me reprise some good news. I will end this show on a good news item. Amy Schneider. I imagine that the great majority of people who listen to the show and watch me on YouTube also are fans of Jeopardy because my viewers are smart. Okay. Amy Schneider of Oakland, she's a local girl, now holds the Jeopardy record for the most winnings for a woman. She was congratulated by the previous record holder, Larissa Kelly. And I think the way they measure this is the most dollar winnings rather than number of shows in a row. I think it was 40 shows in a row. Okay, on Twitter... There was a lot of transphobic clamoring that, she's not really a woman, she's a man. Okay. And she took all that criticism with her usual equanimity. Some of the Twitter trolls claimed that cisgender women aren't as... good at Jeopardy questions as males. And then, those are the jerks that claim that Amy is actually a male. Okay. Haters are going to hate while the transgender community continues to break barriers and social norms. Amy Schneider tweeted on December 31st of last year, 2021. Okay, and this is her tweet. I'd like to thank all the people who have taken the time during this busy holiday season to reach out and explain to me that actually I'm a man. Every single one of you is the first person ever to make that very clever point, which had never once before crossed my mind. Good for you, Amy. And to hell with all you Twitter haters out there and trolls. Okay. I wrote down here as an aside, Fox News seems to be obsessed with trans student athletes, especially trans girls, but can't provide evidence of a problem. Well, they never provide evidence for anything. Provide evidence of a problem of youth ages 13 to 17 identify as transgender. About 150,000 youths out of roughly 2 million. This is CDC data, statistics. Nearly 2% of high school students identify as trans. Roughly 3,500,000 girls are sports participants. And there are only a tiny handful of trans girls that want to participate in sports on girls' teams. But that won't stop Fox News from obsessing about this and trying to make life as difficult as possible for the trans community. Okay, let me play my out music and I'll be done for another week. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, that'll do it for another Midnight Skeptic show. This is very healthy for me to do because it gets all my frustrations and, bad feelings out of my system, and cuts down on heart attacks and artery blockages and all that kind of stuff. I am relatively healthy for my age, and I'm not going to tell you what my actual age is, but I'm getting up there. Okay? All right. Enough of this for another week. See you then.